The Dallas Mavericks are in crisis mode right now. They just suffered a heartbreaking overtime loss to the Hawks last night, their third in a row, which dropped them to 37-42 on the year. That means that this team that made the Western Conference Finals last year is now guaranteed to finish below 500. They're also now a game and a half behind the 10th seeded Thunder, a team they don't have the tiebreaker over. So they have to win 2 of their last 3 to even have a chance to make the play-in game. Well, what a difference a year makes. Their fall is even more shocking because at the trade deadline, they were right in the middle of the playoff picture. They didn't look like world beaters, but no one in the West did, so who cares? Just make the playoffs and then you go from there. And then they traded for Kyrie Irving. It's been, and this is a technical term, pretty shit since then. So, did the Dallas Mavericks make a huge mistake? Before we get to the Mavs though, consider leaving a like on this video, giving us a subscribe, and hitting that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. So let's get right into it. Did the Mavericks make a huge mistake? No, actually. They made 2.
There we go.
Their first mistake was letting Jalen Brunson walk for nothing this past offseason. Brunson was coming off a career year where he averaged 16 points and 5 assists on 50% shooting, and he had an excellent run through the 2022 playoffs where he was consistently the Mavericks' second best player. He was especially good in the first round against Utah. He averaged nearly 28 points per game, and in game 2 he dropped 41. However, the Mavericks front office remained unconvinced. They apparently were skeptical that Brunson was just playing so well because he was in a contract year. This logic makes 0 sense to me because what the f does Mavericks management want him to do? Play like shit so that way you could pay him less? Is that what you wanted, Dallas? Is that really what you wanted? Regardless, the Mavericks were unwilling to match the 4-year, $104 million contract that the Knicks were offering. They apparently were willing to offer $100 million to Brunson, just over 5 years and not 4 years. Again, dumb. Don't know what NBA the Mavericks have been operating in for the past couple years, but $25 million per year is pretty much the going rate for a guard of Brunson's caliber. The real kicker in all this is that Brunson has gone on record stating that if he was offered the 4-year, $55 million extension he was eligible for at the start of the 2021-2022 season, he would have taken it. Had the Mavs offered Brunson that contract, a contract that they had just offered to Dorian Finney-Smith, by the way, they'd probably have the best bargain in the league. Instead, Brunson is in New York as the second leading scorer for a resurgent Knicks team that could be dangerous in the playoffs. Probably not, but maybe. Also, real quick, what is it with the Mavericks and just losing star point guards? This is like the 4th time it's happened to them in the past 30 years. Regardless, the Mavericks didn't pay Brunson. I guess they assumed that they could just slide Spencer Dinwiddie into his spot, and they traded for Christian Wood in the offseason to help make up for the loss of Brunson's scoring. Even without Brunson, expectations for the Mavericks heading into this season were high. Like I mentioned before, the Mavericks were just coming off an appearance in the Western Conference Finals, and many felt this could potentially be the year for Dallas to return to the NBA Finals for the first time since Dirk led them there in 2011. Well, this season for the Mavericks didn't really go as planned. They were up and down really the entire season. Their offense was pretty damn good, and Luka was putting up some of the best numbers of his career, which is a little frightening considering the numbers he put up in years past. But even though their offense as a whole was rated in the top 10, the Mavs struggled to get consistent scoring around Luka. Spencer Dinwiddie, Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway, they're all fine players, but none are particularly known for their consistency. A good argument could also be made that their offense was too Luka-centric. Luka is, of course, an incredible player, but his usage rate is actually the highest in NBA history, and having one guy control the ball that much, I don't think it's a good thing. It's not that easy to get in a rhythm just standing around watching one of your teammates dribble the air out of the ball. But while their offense was pretty damn good, their defense was pretty damn shit. Their only real defender was Dorian Finney-Smith, and hey, he's a good defender, don't get me wrong, but he's not good enough to anchor a defense. Reggie Bullock, I guess, is okay on defense too, but Even still, because the West is such a clusterfuck this year, the Mavs' 29-26 record as of February 6th was still good enough for the 5th seed in the conference. Then came the Kyrie trade, and in case you're wondering, this is mistake number 2.
What a twist!
Maybe it's just me, but I found this move really surprising at the time. I had heard some people toss around the Mavs as a potential option, but I don't know, it felt like most of the focus was on Miami and especially the Lakers. Nope, the Mavs managed to cut in line and they picked up Kyrie for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a first-round pick in 2029, and 2 second-round picks. At the time, while mostly everyone agreed it was a risk, a lot of people, myself included, felt like it was a risk worth taking. Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith are fine players, but neither was really moving the needle, and the Mavericks only gave up a single first-round pick. And hey, if it works, now Luka's got the superstar teammate he's lacked his entire career. If only it had worked. Look, the easy thing for me to do here is just blame Kyrie. And the correlation is hard to ignore. Luka and Kyrie have played 15 games together and they're an abysmal 4-11. And really only one of those wins, a home win against Philadelphia, is particularly impressive. So yeah, Kyrie does get some of the blame here. But I honestly feel like this would have happened with a lot of players with the same play style. If this was Luka and Beal, or Luka and Trey, or hell, even Luka and Dame, I think they'd still be having trouble. Because for some reason, NBA teams don't realize that having a backcourt of 2 high-volume scorers who don't play defense just doesn't work. It especially doesn't work when one of your bigs anchoring the middle is also abysmal on defense. Sure, since Kyrie arrived, their offense has predictably improved, but their defense has just as predictably regressed. Seriously, the Mavs are scoring about 4.4 more points per game since they got Kyrie, but they're also simultaneously giving up 4.7 more points per game. The Blazers tried this experiment for over half a decade. We were the case study. It doesn't work, and I don't get why NBA teams keep sorry about that. Got a little carried away there. Apparently that's a trigger for me. The other half of this duo isn't without blame either, though. I really like watching Luka play. I do. I'm genuinely in awe of him as a player. That being said, I am slowly starting to hate him. He's starting to get Draymond Green syndrome, where he's crying to the refs after damn near every single play. And while he's undoubtedly an amazing scorer, he takes a lot of terrible shots. A lot of his signature step back threes especially. And now look, he makes plenty of them, and he's not the only great shooter who takes bad shots from time to time. Proof. But I don't know. It bothers me when those guys do it, and it bothers me when Luka does it too. And I know defense is never going to be one of Luka's strengths, but God, a lot of the times out there, he doesn't even look like he's trying. Like genuinely, he exhibits 2014 James Harden levels of effort on defense. And you can't get consistently blown by when your backline is Dwight Powell and Christian Wood. Also, I alluded to it earlier, but the Mavericks really need to diversify their offense. Luka's usage rate is way too high, and the Mavericks need to integrate a system that moves the ball more rather than just giving the ball to Luka and having him create. This is a problem I've had with the Blazers for the longest time, being overly reliant on Dame to just create for everyone else. In fact, during the Dame and CJ era, that being from about 2015 to 2022, the Blazers were in the bottom 10 for assists per game every single year, and 3 years we were dead last. And where are the Mavericks in assists per game? Well, they aren't dead last, but they are 28th. And look, in the grand scheme of things, this pairing is still very new. Like I said before, they've only played 15 games together, but they are running out of time quickly, and unless they make the play-in and miraculously make a deep playoff run, which they won't, this season is going to go down as a massive disappointment. And looking forward beyond this year, I got no idea what the Mavericks are going to do. We all know Kyrie wants a long-term deal. Hell, that's the reason he requested the trade from the Nets in the first place. He's eligible for a 4-year, $210 million contract in free agency, and if he re-signs with the Mavericks, he's eligible for 5 years, $272 million. Now, Dallas obviously isn't going to give Kyrie either of those contracts. Or if they do, Apple and Android are going to make bank from all the Maverick fans who spike their phone when they get the news. But could Dallas give Kyrie a 1, maybe a 2-year deal? Yeah, probably. They'd probably be comfortable with that. Kyrie wouldn't like that, but at this point, he essentially has no leverage. He was banking on balling out and proving to either Mavericks management or another team that he was worth max money. Mavs management sure as hell isn't going to commit to him long term after this, and looking around the league, what teams would even be interested? The Clippers probably would be, but they're completely capped out. The Lakers might still be a little interested, but at this point, if I'm them, I'd rather have D'Angelo Russell. I think he's a better fit for that roster. Unless the Rockets or the Jazz just decide to throw a max contract at him for some reason, he's probably just gonna have to re-up with whatever the Mavericks offer him. But should the Mavs even want him? Again, it's early, but the pairing with Luka so far just hasn't worked. But if you let Kyrie walk, then you gave up Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, and a first-round round pick for precisely nothing. If the Mavs do decide to bring Kyrie back, then they need to completely rebuild this roster. This team needs guys that can play defense. You got Luka and Kyrie. You're set on offense. But if you're gonna build around those two, you need guys on the floor that can cover for their weaknesses. Also, Jason Kidd, don't be afraid to draw up some offensive schemes that take the ball out of Luka and Kyrie's hands from time to time. The biggest concern for the Mavericks, though, above everything I've mentioned so far, is the fear of eventually losing Luka. Now, I think this concern is a little overblown, especially right now. Luka still has 3 years left on his deal with a player option for a 4th, so they got some time to figure it out. But if they keep making mistakes, that concern might end up becoming a reality. Still think Kai peeking? That's the video, guys. What do you think the Mavericks should do going forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button, as it really does help us out. And hey, while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.